Yeah, what I want to talk to you guys about is what would happen if there was a one world government. And this is part one of the series. If there was a one world government, it would there's many different things that would be different about this world. People have been speculating what would happen if there was a one world government for centuries. But now I think it's best to say it now, but people have never gone into detail about how it'd be like. Well, for this series, I am going to go into detail. And honestly, the first thing that I think would be different about a one world government is that the citizens of the planet would be a lot more resource rich, okay? Because you have to realize all this stuff about we're running out of resources, a lot of it is due to the fact that you have a lot of governments who either misuse their resources or or it's either they use it for negativity, or they just do not share with the rest of the world. Okay, it's just like in Africa, they still have this old tradition, which I think is also related to the fact that these companies don't really give them the opportunity to receive anything else. But at the same time, the locals, could they have done better? I don't know. But one thing is for certain is that they do use methods that uses up a lot of resources we could use for other things, such as the word burning method. That's old school, really old school, where you would burn something over. You would use wood to not only heat up your house but to cook food, and that uses up a lot of trees. So a lot of the things we might use those trees for, such as timber, and timber to, who knows, maybe even make more skate parks or something, like indoor skate parks, and maybe we could use the trees for something else. It's just an example that corruption in general does cause the people to not have enough resources. It does, different governments does cause the people to not have enough resources. So the people of this planet would have more resources than we have today. Imagine living in possibly a bigger house, okay? A much bigger house. This is a negative issue, but at the same time, it's still an interesting one. Imagine living in a bigger house, okay? Because with how much materials, especially with this one world government, with their plans of depopulating the world, and even without that idea, there is a good chance that there is one thing for certain: we would have larger houses. Probably the average house, who knows, might be 2.5 times bigger than this house of today. Okay, I know I might have said this, and you might have watched my previous videos um, about this issue, but about bigger houses. But that's one thing for true, and I guess when it comes to a lot of things, there would be a lot more a lot more food, a lot more food for people to eat from, like, the Sahara Desert, because they've been saying for decades that they were going to improve on that. Gaddafi, he had that idea. He was the one who originally started it off, but no, but I don't think he had the real vision and the power to be able to irrigate it. Because if you really want to go back, the Sahara Desert actually was tropical. It was a tropical place. It did have a lot of trees and stuff. They're actually saying nowadays it was actually humans who made it into a desert. So we have that excuse. So they would have that excuse to use to make sure that we could have more so we could have more things. And not to mention, there would be a lot more foods across the world people would eat. The diets of people, everything from the spices, particularly the spices, would be a lot more diverse. Because this is something where every region of the planet you could have something from. Okay, it doesn't have to be eating wild animals and exotic game. It could just simply be eating foods and vegetables that we today might not even know of. And honestly, with how big the planet is and how much of it is undiscovered, uh, uh, and and how ignorant a lot of us are, we with how the scale of the planet, I'm certain there'd be a lot of things that in the future in this world they would eat that would actually, a lot of the things we eat today, such as potatoes, tomatoes, you know, like just giving examples of the variety, they would there would probably be things like people would probably say, ew, who eats that anymore? Like, you should try this. This is like a better tasting version of it. So in general, it just shows you that that's one thing that would be different, is that it really would be a much bigger world, and that's one thing that would be an effect. Another interesting fact, because this is just about interesting facts, is that there would be a lot huger riots than today. Imagine living in a world where of course, if there's a one world government, with the fact that you have so many different people all across the world, you know we no longer have to worry about trades and all that sort of stuff. Obviously, that's one thing that would be true, is that people would no longer have to worry too much about worry too much about being able to go from place to place. And with that ability, there would be the idea of being able for people to go to different regions of the planet, different regions of the planet a lot more easily. Like, there's a lot of regions of the planet, that we still cannot go to today. And if there's a one world government, there would be a one world government system. So a lot of the crime issues that a lot of the countries face would probably not affect everybody else. Would not affect everybody else, and due to that fact, more people would start. And of course, the fact that with a lot less people, with the depopulation idea, you know depopulation idea, okay, and just in general, even without that idea, there would be a lot more people living in cities. I'm certain of that, because you'd have, because the European Union and the Americans are more eco-friendly than a lot of the people of the different cultures of the world. And honestly, if you have a position like that, it would be something where they would have more regulations and all that sort of stuff. So honestly, the ability for people to live in bigger cities would be a bigger thing. And due to that fact, that higher population density, there would also you would also have to worry about possibly riots, okay? And just in general, aside from riots, the way people dress and stuff would be a lot more splendid than today. Would be a lot more splendid. There would be huge concerts where people would just run all over the place. You'd see people of all the different regions. The flashiness and the variety. The textures for the clothing and all that sort of stuff would probably be a lot more different than today. A lot more different than today. But would it be a world where people have freedom? Probably not. Because if you have one bad government, honestly, you would have nowhere to go. So honestly, and just in general, if there was a situation like that, if anything were to ever pop off, any political strife were to ever happen, it would be like nothing you have ever seen before. Probably even with a population of 500 million. Like, just give an example. Okay, that's still quite a bit of people, and of course, as a one world government, they would view themselves more as the same. Okay, so in a situation like that, um, what would happen if there were to be riots? Okay, even for the most minor of riots, if it just so happens a lot of people maybe be in a particular city at a particular time, the riots would be like nothing you have ever seen before. There would be bottles, explosions, probably 5 million people all at once, 6 million people, maybe 7 million, just attacking everybody all at once, to, attacking people all at once. It would be probably maybe something like a South Korean riot, but just on a much bigger scale, like 5 6 million people minimum, and that's probably just for an argument over something minor. And yeah, that's my first part of my series. Maybe, hope you enjoyed it. I'll have a next one coming up not too soon from now. Later.